And joined now by Hall of Famer writer Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. Make sure you give him a follow there. Keep you up to date on everything going on in the sports world in general, especially when it comes to college basketball. One of the greats. And there's plenty going on, even though the season is over, Rick. The chatter continues, whether it's the portal, coaching changes, potential coaching changes, hires. We just saw it come out that Lil Rhodey, Archie Miller, has got Kenny Johnson on his staff, former IU and U of L assistant Kenny Johnson, who is still under a potential NCAA cloud. And now Benny Sander, who was Indiana's director of basketball ops for last season after replacing Brian Walsh in that position, but he came here with Archie. So now he's going to become the chief of staff, as Jeff Goodman is reporting it. And Lil Rhodey's staff will have Kenny Johnson, Dwayne Woodard, and Austin Carroll up there. So Archie, Lil Rhodey's got his staff intact, it looks like.
Yeah, the thing that's surprised by that is that Tom Ostrom's not part of the group.
I did not suspect he has been. I ran into him, ironically, through a business associate. And, you know, the group that's putting the camps on at places like Kentucky and Kansas that the players are getting to participating in and making very nice NIL money from, he is working with that group.
Okay.
Well, and I can promise you that is a lot greater job security. I would imagine. Just a hunch there, but
probably a lot less stressful life of having to drive and watch some high school guy play 40 times and then have him tell you, yeah, I'm coming. Oh, no, I'm going somewhere else.
He didn't seem head coach driven to me either. It was not like you didn't hear his name. He'd been an assistant for nearly a decade.
Yeah, he was involved in one head coaching search, though, the year before.
Northern Kentucky, I think, wasn't it?
That's right.
That was the only one that I ever recall bringing up. But
the one Darren Horn.
But anyway, well, you would know since you covered Louisville. Is Kenny Johnson still under potential show cause possibilities?
Yeah, I mean, that case hasn't been resolved yet. Louisville's still waiting for a resolution. They just filed their response to the I don't even know which group it is, whether it's the enforcement committee or the IARP or who you file the response to, but they just filed it like 2 weeks ago, and I think they've got like 8 or 9 months still to get through the entire process. So no, he's not in the clear. In fact, I think, you know, he got hired after he left Louisville at like
LaSalle,
and he coached there for a year or two, and then they changed athletic directors, and I'm pretty sure the new athletic director wasn't okay with it, and he was gone. I think he was out of basketball last year.
So. Yep, and so that amazes me. You see Sean Miller, who is also still waiting to see what the NCAA has to say about what happened under his watch at Arizona. Now, Xavier, being a private school, I guess they can not care, but they're still under the auspices of the NCAA when it comes to playing. Or being eligible for the tournament.
Win, man. Xavier wants to win. I mean, if you're hiring Sean Miller, that's what you're telling. We want to win. We're in the Big East. We want to win the Big East. We don't like being out in the tournament. We don't care what you think.
Well, we've seen Sean Miller return to Xavier and Thad Matta return to Butler. The Thad Matta one was a little surprising to me because I still did not think, and you know, just from a visual standpoint, I didn't know he was healthy enough to go through the rigors of being a head coach yet, because I know, you know, those guys spend long hours, the travel, the recruiting, and just being around him, you could see that he's dealing with issues, and so, but you know, obviously he knows himself better than anyone else, so he must feel to the level where he can do that.
Yeah, and I think Butler's the kind of place that would certainly be willing to take the chance it's going to work because he's already been successful there. Their program is had a pretty consistent decline from Brad Stevens to Chris Holtman to Lavelle Jordan, and they're not in the horizon anymore. They're in the Big East, so much tougher pool to swim in. And when you're in that league, you got to have somebody who gives you a little bit of stature, and he does that. And I'm sure with the right assistants around him that he can at least find out if it's going to work or not. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, just watching him move around and stuff, he looked like somebody would be hard for him to physically do all the things that are demanded of a head coach, especially during recruiting season. Get out and look at players and be active. I mean, when you watch him walk, sometimes he doesn't look like he looks like he's in pain. And what was weird is the whole time at IU, we ever got to talk to him one time, did we? I don't think we
Nope.
did.
And I saw, as a matter of fact, I think it was in the Star that they had made multiple requests that were never honored.
Right.
So that's just a very odd situation. But I was mentioning earlier when Bob Kravitz was on, Indiana's going to save a lot of money over the next couple of years between Dane Fife at $400K and Thad Matta at $400K a year. There's nearly $1 million, and then the nearly $3 million that they're going to save on Archie Miller. So that's a lot of. There's some savings that they can look forward to.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't know. It was never really ever explained what Thad Matta did. I mean, it was almost like he was there to keep Indiana fans.
I don't know what.
Make them feel more secure that if you don't have faith that Mike Woodson can coach, Thad Matta is also there, and he's got a track record. Because he sat there at the scorer's bench too, which was always weird, right next to Scott Dolson during the game, which I thought was.
I think he had the greatest $400,000 a year job that you could possibly have.
Right.
I'd sure like to have had it for a year. I could stretch that out, baby. But he's off to Butler. Michael Lewis at Ball State. A lot of big coaching moves within the state of Indiana here over the last week. Michael Lewis gets his first coaching job at Ball State. He has waited, bided his time. I remember last year, I was convinced that he was going to be in Dane Fife's position. I was just convinced that because he and Dane were supposed to have come on the show the morning of the game that they were playing in that first 4-in game, and Dane canceled, and I wished I would have. It stuck in my head, but I was too busy and let it go, and I wish I would have followed up on that. But I was still convinced it was going to be Michael Lewis. They were just waiting for Dane to get finished. But afterwards, talking to Michael, he said, I'm not leaving Westwood for anything other than a head coaching job. And he was smart, because you look at what happened to Dane, and when you don't have the control, at least whatever control you have as a head coach, I can only imagine what that would be like. So Michael's a very smart guy, and now he's the head coach at Ball State, which is a great place for him to start.
Yeah. He's from Indiana, obviously. He's coached at Butler. He knows the area. He's had success under a lot of different coaches, whether it was with, was he with Stevens there at all at Butler? I know he was with Holtman. He was with.
I can't remember if they're also. And now, and the funny thing is, the whole time I'm thinking the Butler job, Lavelle Jordan had not been fired yet, and someone said, "Well, don't you think they would have fired him by now if they're going to?" I'm like, I guess. And
wait for
now I wonder.
Or something?
Yes, exactly. It was. I think it was the day that his buyout dropped is when they did that. But being a former assistant there, boy, I wonder if you talk about timing of a couple of weeks. I wonder if that's kind of something that.
Right. The thing about Michael Lewis, if he can come into Ball State and have success right here in the middle of the Midwest, we all know that jobs turn over in the Big Ten, and he'll be a prime candidate. If he can have success in Muncie, go to the NCAA tournament, maybe pull off an upset, he'll raise his profile up, considering his background as a former Big Ten player, considering what he did at UCLA and part of their success. In 2 or 3 years from now, when a Big Ten job opens, I think Michael Lewis will be a prime candidate to go someplace in the Big Ten.
And looking forward to that. I've always liked Michael. He's bided his time, but he's coached under some good coaches, and
Yeah.
he seems like a guy that is learning, that is really wanting to learn. I mean, Mick Cronin, I love how he coaches. I don't see how he doesn't have a stroke, but you have to enjoy, and you cannot argue with the success he had. He did it at Cincinnati, where it was difficult to do, and then he goes to UCLA, and then seems like overnight turned them into back to the magic of Westwood.
Yeah, Mick Cronin's another guy's got good coaching DNA in his background, having worked under Bob Huggins and Rick Pitino. I think he's kind of borrowed from both those guys to build his own system and the way he goes about doing things. And he's didn't go as far this year, but he had some injuries. They lose to Gonzaga, UCLA. I don't remember. I think it was Gonzaga. But anyway,
I was out there too. No, didn't they both?
They beat
win their
St.
games
Mary's.
to lose
No, they would have lost to somebody else. I don't remember who it was.
Yeah,
North Carolina.
Might have been North Carolina.
North Carolina, yeah.
North Carolina.
Yeah, they both moved on.
Yeah, Cronin's got it going on, and his name was mentioned briefly here at Louisville, but I think it was going to be Kenny Payne the whole way, and it is Kenny Payne, and still waiting for him to put his staff together.
And that's something I was going to mention. Some surprises. The guys I thought may go there ended up going to other places. What do you think his staff is going to eventually look like as far as the type of makeup?
Kenny? Well, one of them is going to be Nolan Smith, who's going to leave Duke. He's already told Duke he's leaving, and he's coming to be the associate head coach at Louisville. And Nolan's got great credentials. Duke had the #1 recruiting class in the country this year, and Nolan was involved with a number of those guys. So I think that'll work. The other
His
two
father
spots,
was Derek Smith, who passed away, unfortunately, too young.
Yeah, Derek Smith, who played on the 1980 Louisville championship team with Darrell Griffith. The other two guys aren't known yet. I've been told that he's picked them. He just hadn't announced it yet. I think one of them will be an older guy with maybe some head coaching experience in his background. And I think the other guy will be a younger guy, who's probably has more connections out in the basketball world.
Speaking about a resume for Michael Lewis, coached under Stevens, Miller, and Holtman at Butler.
There you go.
That's a builder there. And, he's talking about, well, we already talked about Sean Miller, but Kansas wins the national championship. Speaking of NCAA investigations, another team with the NCAA holding. This is, and it's kind of the last of this because we've gotten into the situation where cheating is basically no longer illegal.
Cheating's cheating.
It just is what it is. You can hand out bank full of cash now. You can find a way to do it, but they still have to deal with the cheating that was going on prior. Teams like, I hate to say it again, but Louisville, Kansas, and Arizona. Bill Self is another coach, Arizona. Bill Self is another coach, though, that is under some heavy potential violations, and he could potentially be sanctioned. This is a banner that could potentially come down. I don't know that I see him doing that like they did to Louisville. I was surprised they did it to Louisville. I think that there was too much in their recent past, but I don't see him doing it to Kansas. But I just don't think it's a great look for the sport when your national champion is under such a cloud of suspicion of cheating.
Yeah, I think Kansas has written the playbook for how to go to deal with the NCAA, basically saying deny everything, push back on everything, saying we don't agree with what you're saying, and we're going to double down and back our coaches. Throughout this entire process, Bill Self, his contract was strengthened and extended with Kansas. The assistant coach, who was, I think, mentioned in some of the stuff with Zion Williamson about we need to really get this guy. What do we have to do to get it done? He's still there. They did nothing. And Kansas basically just thumbed their nose at the NCAA, and I think other schools have looked at it and said that's the way to go. And I think I read somewhere though that none of the players on this team were involved in that thing. So the banner, Kansas might end up getting some sanctions, probably some kind of a light probation, but the banners, the championship banner won't come down.
Right. Bill Self, I don't see him doing much to him either.
No.
North Carolina has, to me, paved the way for how you deal with the NCAA. You deny everything. You don't deal with them. You send the people that worked for you during that period away, like they used to in The Godfather. Yeah, we don't know where he is. They don't work here anymore. They're gone. We don't know what happened to them. Because that's what happened in North Carolina. The people, two of the big people who are involved, no longer work there. So it's very, very convenient.
And then they don't have to cooperate with the NCAA.
Nope. The NCAA is such a teethless organization. Indiana going forward now, Xavier Johnson, the mess that he has gotten himself in now, we've talked about this all week. I personally don't see how he stays on the team. I don't see how Mike Woodson can make the stand that he made at Northwestern and then have a guy that was kind of the central figure and your senior leader that damn near derailed the season and cost your entire everybody everything, and then does this. I'm like, that's not a guy I can trust to make the right decisions. That's not a guy I can trust to have other teammates around. That's not a guy I can trust to lead this team. But whether he stays or goes, I don't know.
Yeah, there really has been no comment from IU at all other than that statement they issued the morning after. When did this happen? Saturday night? Sunday night?
Yeah, it was early Sunday morning, Saturday night.
Yeah, it's not a good look to have a guy who was one of the 5 players suspended at Northwestern, which was in the middle of that 5-game losing streak that almost knocked Indiana out of the tournament, then to come back and be this irresponsible again. And I know that people say kids make mistakes, and we do. We do know that teenagers and young 20-year-olds make mistakes. But you're also not the normal 20-year-old. You're a representative of a university who should understand that whatever you do is going to be blown out of proportion and going to be in the public eye. And so you have to err on the side of not doing that kind of stuff. And especially when you've already got at least one strike against you that we already know of. So we'll see. We'll see what Mike Woodson does. I think people will be watching to see if he does. I kind of think if he was going to remove him from the team, it would already have happened, but maybe not. But we'll see how they explain it if he does stay on the team.